This is the Connecticut Sports Talent Show, where we talk all things talents in Connecticut. And on today's show, I'm pleased to have a special guest, a guest that I played baseball with way back when we were 15. He remembers now, but my mind, I remembered. Kevin Maxen, he's a former Pomparock and Westcon football player for a number of years, and now in his new position as the associate strength coach for the NFL Jacksonville Jaguars. Kevin, thanks so much for being able to come on, man.
Thanks for having me, Chris. I appreciate it.
First and foremost, before we get into the details of basically your whole life up until now, which we'll try to cram in for about 25, 30 minutes, how's your family? And also, how's your twin brother?
Everybody's doing all right. I'm the lucky one to be down in Florida, and it's about 65 today. It was 80 something the other day, and they're stuck with a couple feet of snow. So they're doing all right. They're holding in. My brother is applying to grad school, so he's looking to get out of Connecticut and come down south and join me somewhere. So I'm excited for that. But everybody's doing well.
I envy you so much that you're in the warmth. I hate this weather, man. I hate it.
Yeah. As soon as I had the opportunity to get out of Connecticut and the Northeast in general, I took it and went right to Los Angeles.
I do not blame you one bit. Now, one bit, man. But hey, thanks so much for being able to come on. I think first thing, let's kind of talk about you played, and I know, to go back to when you were a kid playing football, I mean, you could talk about that as well, but just going up until where you were at Pomparock, I mean, did you always dream of playing at Pomparock? Was football a big thing in your family? Just tell me about that.
No, I was a baseball player growing up, and still I would say I'm a baseball guy more than a football guy. But I mean, when you're in Southbury, Connecticut, or Millbury, Connecticut, and you're in sixth grade, like at least this was back in 2004, 2005 when Pomparoy was really good, and I think it was 2004 they won the state championship, and I was in fifth or sixth grade, and I remember going to like Millbury Pizza and seeing some of those guys there, like Charlie Benton, the Tidwells, Rosatis, and guys like that, and just seeing them. I mean, like that's what we wanted to do. And I lived right on Old Waterbury Road, so anytime on a Friday night, if you were going down to 84, you saw the lights at the field. So it was always something that was cool. And my friends had a lot of older brothers who were on those really good teams. So to be able to be a part of that 5, 6 years later, whatever it was pretty cool.
So what drew you to the game of football? Because obviously both yourself and your twin brother were, big guys, not in terms of this, but you guys you were broad, you were thick, you were strong. I mean, I told you your brother hit a ball so far. I think it's still going 20, 15 years later, however long it's been. I mean, we're practically the same age, but like just what drew you to the game of football?
Really, I remember this is probably eighth grade going into freshman year. And I had a friend, still a friend, Ryan Kauko, who said, "Hey, you should play football." And I really didn't want to, but he said, "You'll be good at it." And I said, "Okay, that's all I need to hear." And it worked out. And for the first maybe couple months of the season, I really didn't like it. I didn't want to play. And then Tom Taylor, the freshman football coach, and Rob Mazurowski and Chuck Jury, all coaches there, they convinced me, and they knew how to reach me. And essentially it was, "Hey, you're going to be good. This is going to pay off in the long run." So I stuck with it, and I guess it worked. I guess they were all right.
Yeah, I think it worked out pretty well. We'll get into that in a little bit, but being so new to the game at such a young age, I almost wonder, it's kind of like, because baseball, if you become a pitcher at a later stage of your career, like let's say late high school or college, your arm is fresh. You have a lot of bullets in the arm. For you being so quote unquote late to football, you didn't have the wear and tear that a young football player back then, because mind you, we know much more now than we did back then as far as concussions and everything. Your body was basically almost like a brand new car coming off the lot.
Yeah, and ninth grade, 10th grade, and then junior year, senior year, in my entire college career, it took a steep downhill path. uh, but no, it definitely helped not being completely I guess, burnout from the game. Uh, that I think you see so many people now who are play Pop Warner all the way through high school, and then they have an opportunity to go to college, and they want to go be in a frat or be doing something else other than sports, which I don't understand. I never will. It's not who I am. But and I think it did help, and I think having the teammates that I had and the coaches that I had, it made it enjoyable. Where football was never a burden. It was never something. Oh, I have to go to football. It was all right. Let's go and do this. So yeah, I think that kept me put a couple extra years towards the back end of my career, I would say.
Now, also being around those coaches and those talented
Mm-hmm.
players and such, and also being, you mentioned about Southbury, Middlebury, and
Yep.
but the amount of talent that comes out of Pomparock from the basketball program, my broadcast partner in the NVL, Dave Grant, holds a record. I think the scoring title in Pomparock.
Yep.
You also have I mean, it's like a laundry list of names from baseball to football, basketball, and so on and so forth. So
Yep.
when you were a freshman, let's just, first practice, first game, month, whatever, what was it like as far as, did you ever, were you nervous? Was it something where it was like, you know what, I'm new to the game, I'm big, I'm just going to go out and play?
Yeah. No, it was really just going out and playing. I remember going into ninth grade, me, my brother, and our friend Eric Carver. We would go into the weight room, and we had some other incoming freshmen who would go too, but I remember it being us. And we'd ride down to the turf in Jeff Verleza's car, and we would just go get after it. And really being in the weight room, as Coach Jury always says, trust is built in the weight room and then carried out onto the field. So we're in there with those guys and seniors, and they didn't care if we were freshmen and had no idea what we were doing. They took us under our wing, and there was guys, like I said, Verleza, Bobby Major, Mike Leonetti, Paul Meyer, Ian Suter, Alex Rosati, Jeff Rose, and really Jeff. I remember, this is a funny story. I know I'm going off path. I think this was one of our first games. We were playing New Fairfield, and I had my bag with all my game day stuff in my locker, and my locker got jammed, and I couldn't get my socks out. And I had no idea what I was doing. And Jeff was walking by, and he saw me trying to get into the locker, and I couldn't do it. He said, "It's all right, Kev. You can wear a pair of my socks." They gave me a pair of socks, and I scored 4 touchdowns that game. And it was just, I mean, just having those guys who you can look up to, and they treat you as equals. And I'm still friends with Jeff and most of those guys who I listed. Like getting texts from them now congratulating me and things like that. It's pretty cool. It's pretty special.
That's a great memory you have to be able to remember not just the names, but the
Oh, yeah,
stories behind it, man.
the
That's,
socks.
hey, we're not old yet. We still have a pretty good memory, you know, but that's fantastic, man. Now, were you thrown into the fire as far as the games your freshman year? Because I know Pomparock, just from the baseball side, and even to a certain degree the football side as well, and covering, as far as some players that they've had in the past. I know if they're talented, they throw them in. They say, "All right, young man, woman, go sink or swim." Was that the same thing with you?
No, I think Coach Jury had a different philosophy on it. I didn't start playing any varsity time until my late in my sophomore year, like the last couple of games against Notre Dame, Fairfield, and Oxford. But no, it was a lot being thrown in just as a freshman in the freshman games. Like I didn't know what I was doing. I would just get the ball and run, and hope something good would happen. Uh, and I remember Coach Tata just yelling at me, telling me I'm not doing it right. And I was like, "But I'm scoring." So no, it took a while to get used to the game, and even still, like I'll be watching football and I have no idea what's going on. Just go tackle the guy who has the ball, or run it into the end zone. I mean, that's it.
So, as you continued on your career in high school, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, probably a dumb question, but did the game ever slow down to you, or was it just kind of like, at some point, if the game never slows down, that's
Yeah.
fine. I'm just going to allow my athletic ability to dominate a game.
I think my athletic ability helped slow it down. We're coached really well, so I knew, like my junior and senior year, I felt very comfortable on the defensive side of the ball, especially. and that helped a lot. And then what helped even more, and this is more when I was at Westcon, um, having interned at Iowa, having interned at Army, and at a private gym in California, I was around not only just like good players themselves, but good coaches. And like I remember just talking to Coach Ferentz, who's the head coach at Iowa, just about football, just in passing. Like he's a very good guy. He actually went to UConn, so there was a Connecticut connection there. So just being around good players and good coaches, like think you kind of develop a perspective. And it wasn't that I got much better or I knew more. It was I knew how to I knew how to prepare for the game. I knew how to watch film a little bit better. I knew how to take care of my body a little bit better. I knew how to get stronger, and that kind of made everything slow down.
So, in your career, when did you start to realize, and I'm sure, you were a bright kid when we were kids,
Yeah,
with you and your brother. I mean, your art, your brother wants to, sounds like become an artist, do art,
mm-hmm.
good for him. And I wish him nothing but the best of luck. When did you start to realize that you may have, your career as a football player would at some point end, but there's an avenue for something else? When did you realize that?
uh, I don't think there was any specific time. I think it just really kind of happened. One thing kind of led into the next. Um, I went to Endicott College my true freshman year and really didn't like it, and ended up leaving halfway through the semester and coming back to Pomparock. And Mike Eisenbach, who was a baseball coach there, and a really close friend and mentor and role model of mine, he said, "Hey, come coach with me." So I did that, and I enjoyed that. We didn't really have anybody running the weight room, and at that point, everybody who was playing were guys who I played with. Um, so it was pretty comfortable for me to go in and not necessarily coach them, say, "Hey, do this," but "Hey, follow me. I'm lifting. Just come lift with me, and we'll get this right." Um, and then, just like I said, one thing led to the next. My brother was at Central playing, and Mike Erickson and Mike Piper, the strength coaches there, reached out to me and asked if I wanted to just be like a volunteer, just show up when I can and help out in the weight room. And I did that. And next thing you know, it's me and one other coach, and we have the soccer team in the weight room, and I'm coaching D1 athletes how to snatch. And I've never coached anybody doing really anything like that. And so you kind of have to learn pretty quickly. But that really helps, gives you confidence. When people put that type of trust and responsibility, just because they know who you are as a person. And then you're able to really capitalize on that. And like I said, just kept leading into bigger and better things.
You allude to the fact of your coach who was your mentor and somebody
Yeah.
that you trusted. And I think a lot of people, because of this pandemic, I think a lot of things have been magnified in multiple
Mm-hmm.
ways, a lot of things. But sticking to this subject specifically, and I'm sure you followed it from time to time as far as what the football players dealt with and the coaches and such. And I think, like you said, with how much your coach meant to you and what happened at Endicott and then coming back, he said, "Hey, open arms, come back to me, come back home." I think what is going on with the pandemic and not being able to play football and such, and kind of magnifies how much coaches mean to players. And I think
Yeah.
you're an example of that, because you had a problem. Endicott didn't work out, schools don't work out, but you came back home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, I mean, I was in Dallas during the majority of the early pandemic when they made the decisions to cancel school, cancel athletics, and um, we had a very. I was at a high school. We had a very strong athletic program there and just support system for the kids, just being able to reach out to them. Um, and I still get texts from those guys all the time whenever they need really any like random stuff. Just I think it's so important to have that relationship with your coach and even teammates. But um, it was frustrating to see because I know Tony Pereira pretty well, who's a head coach, football coach at Pomparock now, and I still know some of those guys. And just knowing that they can't do the things that made me who I am and made so many people like who they are is frustrating, especially in the grand scheme of things. I understand the safety of it, but I think there's so much more that people fail or lack to consider in terms of what athletics actually mean and how important it is to be connected.
Couldn't agree with you more, man.
Yeah.
100% right on that one.
Yeah.
Now, your time at Westcon. Now, you were there for a couple years. You had a
Mhm.
fantastic career there. Kind of take me into that part as far as what led you to play at Westcon.
So I knew I wanted to coach. I was taking some classes at Gateway Community College in Naugatuck Valley, which some days I would go, some days I would go lift instead, which I'm not. If there's any young kids, don't do that. Go to class. Don't skip class to go lift. It worked out for me. It probably won't work for you. I got lucky. Um, but I was doing, I was doing that. I knew I wanted to go back to school. But I also knew that if I went back to school full time, I probably wasn't going to be successful. I would do the same thing. I would just go. I would leave. I wouldn't finish class. Um, so Mike Lago was a defensive back coach at Westcon, who I played with at Endicott my freshman year. He was at Pomparock, and him and Chuck Lynch, who was a head coach at New Milford for a bit, and then he was running back coach at Westcon for a couple of years. Him and Coach Lago came to Pomparock to recruit one of our players. I haven't seen Mike or Coach Lynch probably since I was a freshman in college and a senior in high school. So it was a while. And we were just kind of in the office, kind of joking. And they were like, hey, it looks like you still can play. Do you have any eligibility left? Like, yeah, I do. Yeah, I probably can play. Yeah, I didn't want to go back to school. All right, come and play. So that's really how it went down. And I showed up. I didn't know anybody in the program. I didn't know any of the players or anything. I knew Coach Lynch. I knew Coach Lago. I knew Coach Lago Senior a little bit, and just did it. Just gave it a try. I knew that I would have a little bit different perspective because at that point I was probably 23. Um, yeah, so I was a little bit older, but we had at Westcon we get a good amount of not grad students, but transfer students, like second chance type guys. Maybe they things didn't work out at the school they were at before, so take a couple of years off, come back to Westcon, finish, get a degree, didn't play football doing it. I think we do a really good job, more so than any school that I know, kind of accepting those older guys back. And I think that's why we have a stable program there, because you do have some older guys who are a little bit more mature who can help some of those younger guys. So that's how I ended up there, and it was a good time. We have a lot of good stories, uh, good and bad stories from it, but it really helped just because the demographic there was the complete opposite of the demographic at Pomparock. So being able to kind of get a chance to know that side of it and see as a leader and middle linebacker calling plays and doing all that type of stuff, like how to interact a little bit better. Just things that you don't really think about off the bat.
It almost sounds like that, everything happens for a reason. I truly
Mm-hmm.
believe that
Yes.
maybe you were meant to go, not to say that you weren't to finish school at Endicott, but maybe it just wasn't the right time. Maybe it just things did not align. And then you having to go to Pomparock and then the chatter about, hey, are you eligible? Can you play? Yeah, I could play. Okay, well, why don't you come to Westcon? And then it
Yeah.
just led to another. It just sounds like the growth of you and the maturity side. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but the maturation for you as a person, a young man, an athlete, now trainer and such, a strength coach, really kind of started at Westcon, and it got progressively better for you later on.
Yeah, I think that's a very good way to put it. It it gave me a role where I was leading college kids um, and being kind of an older kid who had experience at Division I schools as an intern. Like my voice was heard, I think, with the kids I was playing with, and it really it wasn't always there was definitely some butting of heads, but I mean, I like to think it helped. It was a positive thing for everybody. Maybe not initially right in that moment, but down the road, hopefully, some of my teammates can look back and say, "Hey, yeah, Kev may have been a little bit of a could have been a little bit hard to deal with sometimes, but I'm a better person because of it. It helped my growth as a human being and a man, a student, and an athlete. So
Hey, if
I hope so.
anybody, I mean, again, I agree with you because if anybody's even questioning why you said a certain thing back then, well, here's the thing: you're going to be with the Jacksonville Jaguars,
Yes.
NFL guys. Okay, like people need to say, oh, you know what? He was doing something right. Maybe I should have listened to him because he's there and I'm over here.
You said it, not me, but yeah.
No, all jokes aside, though, I think I'm again going back to when we were kids. Both you and your brother were very quiet. I was very quiet, but
Mm-hmm.
it just I can just tell from the people I've talked to that your word carries a lot of weight, and I mean that in a positive way because you're
Thank
not
you.
saying it to be, an a hole or be a jack. You know what? You're doing it because you're trying to help, and maybe the tone is maybe not be right once in a while
Yeah,
or whatever, but
more times than not.
yeah, but the end result, because not everything is, cookie cut down the middle. It's going to be perfect.
Correct.
There's different ways, different. I mean, look, John Calipari. You think he has won so much because he likes to be nice? No, he's
No.
tough on his kids because he wants to see them reach their ceiling. And that's the same thing with
Yeah.
you.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
I agree with that. But yeah, so that was Westcon, and really immediately. So I graduated from Westcon in the December of 18, or I'm going to say 18. I could be wrong. And had a job lined up at Baylor. The guy who I interned for in California was good friends with one of the assistants at Baylor, and that kind of opened up some doors there. So really, once I graduated, I packed my car up and drove down to Waco, Texas, and spent just a little bit under a year there, um, working for Coach Rule, who's the head football coach for the Panthers. Was there, and that was a great experience. Just to see the way that he led those guys, and I think they were 1-11 or something like that the year before I got there, and the year after, I think they were 11-1.
How
So
was
just,
that? I don't mean to cut you off, but
oh,
just
go ahead.
how was it being around Coach Rule? Because now he's in the NFL, and
Mm-hmm.
he, in my opinion, I mean, you could again correct me if I'm wrong. Trust me, wrong a lot here, but the amount that he was able to do, I thought the Panthers were pretty competitive for a team
Mm-hmm.
that for the last couple of years has been not very good. And then like same thing with Baylor too. Baylor was up until he got there the doormat of the Big 12. And now he laid the foundation, and even though he's gone, they are still very competitive. So, if you could take me into some of the conversations you had with him, or just like what wisdom did he have that kind of sprinkled onto you?
Well, for starters, he's a very good person, and I got to know his dad, Denny Rule, a little bit. He was at practice almost every day, and I tried to have as many conversations with him as possible. And he's just a phenomenal guy. He has phenomenal character, and the thing that Coach Rule has done so well, at least what I got to see when I was at Baylor, is the relationships that he has with the players, and therefore the buy-in that he gets. Also, he gets coaches who are going to build those relationships, and he's going to push them to be the best that they can be. So it was just an overall good scenario. The other good thing about Coach Rule is that he kind of, and there was many days where he would come into the office, and he would say straight up, I don't know anything about strength and conditioning. You guys do. You do it with what you need to do. You do it. I trust you guys. So to have that kind of not freedom, but the autonomy to know that what Coach Scott, the head strength coach, was putting in, and Coach Cox and Coach Campbell, the other two assistants, some of the other assistants, what we were doing, like we took ownership in that, and I think that helped a lot. The other thing that he did a good job, and Coach Meyer is kind of in that same boat, and I think it helps being a college, primarily college coach. is that you can develop a greater sense of culture, I think, than some of the just straight up NFL head coaches, because you're used to that. You need to build a culture if you want to get guys to recruit. It's basically recruiting. You're recruiting guys to play hard for you. I think they both do a tremendous job in that.
Now, where else? Now, what other were you at other colleges after Baylor? I know you mentioned a couple high schools to me prior. I mean, just take me into where was your travels before you eventually landed with Jacksonville?
Well, before Baylor, I was at Iowa and Army West Point,
Mm-hmm.
and after that, Vanderbilt. So again, three great head coaches: Coach Ferentz, Coach Monken, and Coach Mason, who all really were on different types of levels. They weren't the same as Coach Rule, and they're not the same as Coach Meyer. So it's kind of like I'm trying to visualize it. Like you have Coach Ferentz is up here, then you have Coach Rule, Coach Meyer, Coach Mason, and they're all very. The middle part, what connects them all is they're just good people. Whether that's the perception in the media or whether it's the actual truth, they're good people, and they want you to be the best. Like it's not you are doing this for me. No, you're doing this for you, and you're helping me. So I think that it's a positive working relationship and working environment for all those guys. But they all brought something a little bit different to the table. Same thing with the head strength coaches who I've worked under. I've been pretty fortunate where everybody is kind of in that same coaching tree. So everywhere I go, it's another nugget from something that I kind of already know, and it just kind of fills the picture a little bit more. So I've been fortunate in that regard to be around good people, but be around systems that I'm familiar with and systems that I can actually contribute to. It's not like a brand new start where, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. Just tell me what to do. Like at this point in my career, I feel confident enough to go in somewhere and say my opinion, have that opinion heard with confidence. So it's a good feeling.
Well, it's almost like being a quarterback at the same team for 15 to 20 years. I mean, Tom Brady was under the same system for multiple years, had same coaches. And I think same thing for you. If you're around the same system or somewhat close to it, like you
Mm-hmm.
said, it's less brain work to have to learn a new system and go through all the new stuff. It's almost like riding a bike where it's okay, I know what I'm doing, like you said. Don't have to ask questions, you already know. And then one thing goes to another.
Yeah, and it's not even the exact system. It's just it's a system of elite human beings. It's like we want to be elite, whether it's Coach Meyer, Coach Rule. Like the goal is to be elite. And that word I think is, I don't want to say thrown around, but that word comes up often everywhere that I've been. So you know what elite is, you know what elite looks like, and you know the attributes and the characteristics of someone who wants to be elite. So I think that's easy for me to kind of, all right, well, I know what the standard is. It's only going up. So it's I don't want to say comfortable, but it's something that I'm familiar with.
And speaking of elite, Jacksonville has a new head coach. Urban Meyer was
Yep.
elite in college,
Yep.
wherever he was, and now he's with Jacksonville. And before I get into even any questions as far as you and with the team, how did, again, probably dumb question, but I figured I'd ask you, how did you end up with Jacksonville? Because to me, and this is just a guess, the connections that you had with so many people and the amount of just in the game of football, it's like I've heard people at the high school level who can recall somebody from 20 years ago who's now all
Yep.
doing college stuff. Like it's crazy, but that's just how the game is,
Yeah.
is, and that's what makes it so beautiful. So for you, how did you end up with Jacksonville?
Yeah. So I was at Vanderbilt. We got let go around January after Coach Mason got fired about three quarters of the way through the season. So I was, I wasn't in a rush to look for a new job. It was kind of, I don't want to say relaxed, but it was nice having some time off and being able to reflect. And I took a lot of opportunity to kind of reach out to coaches who I haven't talked to in a while, and even like new coaches. Hey, Kevin Maxen, whatever. I was just coaching at Vanderbilt, Just wanted to introduce myself. I know we know some of the same people, so that's always a positive thing when you get the chance to do that. But I had a lot of people who were willing to help, a lot of people who were looking out for my best interest. And one of them was Chris Doyle, the former head strength coach at Iowa, who was hired at Jacksonville to be the director of player development or human performance, one of those titles. And me and him had a pretty good relationship when I was at Iowa. And we maintained that relationship the past couple of years. And again, he's one of those mentors and just someone who I highly regard as probably the best strength coach in the United States of America. There's maybe 2 or 3 others who I would say are up there with him. And he's just a great guy. And I know, without saying anything that I shouldn't say, I know there's been a reputation now attached to his name, and it's something I take a little bit personal because I know who he is as a man. I know what he's done for me as a coach, but even more than that, as another man. So he gave me a call and said, "Hey, I'm going down here. I'd like to bring you with me. I think it's going to be a good fit. I'm familiar with his system, and that's something he knew. So yeah, that's how it happened. But really, when you're in this profession, it's not so much what you know, and it's not even, I know the old saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know, but it's not even who you know, it's do you know how to be a good person? Or are you someone who you can spend 18 hours a day with essentially and not want to, do bad things to that person? Like, could you sit in the office with somebody and have a conversation? Could you have enough personality and enough cognizance of what's going on around you where it's not strength again and again and again and again and again, because then you start burning out. But it really, if you're a good person, if you're pleasant to be around, and things are going to happen for you, and people are going to want to be around you. So yeah, that's how I ended up here.
Kevin, I can tell you right now, I'm so thrilled for you to be able to have this opportunity with Jacksonville, man. I think,
Thank you.
Beyond the fact that I could tell my grandkids or kids, whoever, that, hey, I played with a kid when we were kids. We were all quiet, including his twin brother. His twin's probably now one of the best artists in the world. This is like years down the road. And you're probably the head strength coach one day, hopefully.
Hopefully.
And being able to do great things. And I couldn't be more happy for you, Kevin. Seriously.
Thank you. That's really the best part about this whole opportunity, is that I'm representing so many people, and just it's not just me at the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's the entire greater Waterbury area. It's Westcon, it's Pomparock, it's Southbury, Millbury. And so it's nice to have that representation, and just to make people proud is a good motivator.
Every day that you wake up and are working for them, you're not just putting Connecticut on the map, showing that, hey, we produce some pretty good guys and young women as well, and women in general who are doing great things. But it's nice to know that there's somebody who, as far as who's working the NFL, that has worked, and it's not like anything was handed to you. You had to bust your butt. You had to go to Vandy, go to Baylor, go here, go there. I mean, it's a story that I think could truly, you're probably going to laugh, but it could be kind of made into a movie in some way, because, seriously, because after leaving Endicott, again, I'm being honest with you here. Could you ever, did you ever even envision yourself even ending up here? Because it's like you leave Endicott, exactly, right?
No, I had no idea what I was going to do. Literally none. And there was a point, I had applied for that internship in Los Angeles. Tim Karen was a guy whose gym it was, and he was a head strength coach at Army West Point. So I had followed him on Instagram because of it, and West Point's not too far from us. He had posted looking for interns. So I reached out to him and said, yeah, I'm interested. I'll send my resume and stuff over. And turns out he's also from Connecticut. His wife went to Central. he went to Westfield in Massachusetts.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and then I found out it was in California. I said, well, I don't know if I can swing that. Turns out, I don't know if you remember the name Brent Palella.
I remember.
Played baseball and basketball at Pomparock, and one of my good friends. He lived like 15 minutes walking from the gym in Redondo Beach, California. So it just happened to work out. And at that point, I said, you know what? Maybe this is what I'm supposed to be doing, or else why would it happen the way that it's happening? But yeah, like you said, I think it is a pretty good message for anybody who really wants to be a strength coach. Like, I know there's such a push, uh, go to school, stay on the path, stay on the track. But if you can get, I don't want to say you can find your way around it, but it's not just going, like, you have to actually do things. Like, you have to be willing to fly across the country. You have to be willing to drive 27 hours straight to wake up with maybe $400. Like, you have to be willing to do that type of things, and it pays out. There's a guy, Mike Enriques, who was a Pomparock grad, I think 990 something or 2000 something, who kind of had a similar path as I did. And he was a head strength coach for the Oakland A's for some time. Now he's at Grand Canyon University, but he essentially did the same thing, did a couple internships, is a great guy. Someone noticed that he was a great guy, and he got a job at, I want to say Arizona State or University of Arizona. And one thing just led to the next. And now he's in the head guy at Grand Canyon University. So it works out.
And it worked out for you, man. You were in Jacksonville, and like I said, couldn't be more happy for you. But hey, we've just about run out of time. I know the time flies, but Kevin, I'm sure you're going to be really busy pretty soon. If not, you already are. But I would love to be able to have you back on at some point before the season starts to be able to just talk about what's been going on with you and just stay in touch because, again, I knew you before you were famous, way back in baseball. I'll keep going back to that. Trust me.
All right. Sounds good. I appreciate you having me on.
No problem, buddy. Anytime. That'll wrap things up here in the Connecticut Sports Talent Show. So until next time, stay safe. Remember, CT stands for Connecticut Talent, and I'm on a journey to find them all. Have a good one, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day.